Continuing my journey down south, I come to South America for the first time, with southeast Peru being my final stop of my expedition. Here I come back to the world of birds, but this time instead of working with one species, I worked with potentially hundreds of them, thanks to Peru being a bird diversity hotspot that has over 1,800 bird species. In particular, the area with the most bird diversity is along the gradient in the Peruvian Andes, which is essentially this relatively narrow range of land, covering less than 10% of the entire Peruvian territory. And here is where I worked on a project called Manu Bird Project, which focuses on studying why such high bird diversity is created as well as maintained.
My name is Jill Jankowski, and I'm an assistant professor at the University of British Columbia. And here we are in Manu National Park. This park is located in southeastern Peru on the eastern slope of the Andes, and it goes all the way from tree line at about 3,600 meters down to the lowland Amazon. So the objective of our project is to try and figure out how this diversity is organized in this very small area. What we've been able to show is that species occur here along this mountain slope, but they may have distributions that are extremely limited. So they have very narrow elevations where they occur. And we're trying to figure out, for something like a bird that can fly and disperse longer distances, what keeps them constrained to these very narrow habitats and very narrow elevations along this gradient. So our project has a couple of different objectives to test some alternative hypotheses, such as species are physiologically limited, that they're physiologically specialized to certain parts of an elevational gradient, which changes in temperature and oxygen availability as you go upslope. Also, there are lots of other kinds of species interactions that can limit species to only a certain environment, like competition with other species or predators or parasites.
In other words, there's a very high species turnover rate here, meaning that the bird species are replacing one another very quickly along the gradient, creating their own niche and thus a very flourished diversity. I'm lucky enough to have worked at two stations along the gradient, with one that's 2,800 meters and one that's 1,400 meters high in elevation. They're both located right in the cloud forest. Cloud forests are a type of evergreen mountain forest found in tropical areas where the canopy is frequently covered by fog or mist. One of their most obvious features is the abundance of mosses, ferns, and orchids. Up high at 2,800 meters, in front of me are big mountains, and clouds often come up close to me. This forest is calm and peaceful. Lower down at 1,400 meters, below my feet is a raging river, and up above my head are some energetic monkeys. This forest is lively and dynamic. Although two cloud forests are very different from one another, the work we perform at each station is the same. One of the major focuses of the project is to map out where the birds live, which is the population distribution, by doing mist netting. This is a mist net, which is highly invisible. A number of them are open from dawn to dusk, and the mist netting team checks them every half an hour. When we are lucky enough, or if the bird is unlucky enough, it will fly into the net and thus get captured. But having a bird in the net is just the first step. Extraction is the second. At times, birds could get themselves very tangled as they keep on struggling, and this is when a good mist netter comes into the play. Skilled, fast, and most importantly, patient. After getting the bird out of the net, we then go into the standard procedures of bending, taking measurements, blood, and ectoparasite samples. By releasing the bird after we're done with it, it means that we have one more data point on the distribution map. And a lot more coming, as it is an ongoing effort in understanding more about the tropical montane bird population. Apart from the distribution, there's also one other major focus, and that is the life cycle of the birds. With that said, there are a lot of questions to be answered. For example, by deploying camera traps at the nests, we can detect potential predators and thus know what predates what and how frequently it happens. By setting up a thermometer device and then interpreting the readings of the temperature, we can know how much effort different species put into taking care of their babies. For example, how long and often they incubate the eggs. By measuring chicks and doing endothermic measurements, we can understand how much the chicks have grown over time and how their endothermic regulation develops, and at what age they can thermoregulate themselves. These are all big questions to be answered in the academia. Yet, in the field, the biggest questions all assistants are trying to answer is, so where are the nests? And this is what we do all day, looking for nests in the forest, which is the task of nest searching. But finding nests is not all that easy. Although birds are among the most colorful things in forest, when it comes to their nest, they're the dullest things that blend in so well with the forest. And even if you see many birds around, that doesn't tantamount to a lot of nests found. One interesting thing about the birds here is that when you're out in the field and you see a lot of them fly around, hang around, and hear them sing, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you will find a lot of nests nearby. The reason is, birds here like to form mixed species flocks, which means that different bird species will get together as a group. And the main purpose of the group is to feed and find food. The reasons for forming these mixed species flocks is that there will be a better division of labor. So for instance, some of the bird species might be the alarm callers, some of them might be the navigators. And also, there will be less competition within the group members because certain species feed on certain things. So don't get too excited when you see these flocks in the field, because you probably wouldn't find anything by following them. They're most likely out feeding in the field. Unlike seeing a flock of birds, it's actually a good sign when you see an isolated pair or an isolated individual. When that happens to you, you might always want to stop and take your time just to observe their behavior. If you see them flying in and out from a certain area, that's a good sign. And if you see food or nesting materials in their mouth, and that's even a better sign. And when that happens to you, you might always want to be patient, keep an eye on them, and follow them slowly. Eventually, they might lead you to their nests. Also, nests could be found anywhere. High up in the tree, or low at the ground, sitting at the bark, or hanging from a branch. But there are certain places that you might want to look into where there is a higher chance of finding a nest. When you're out in the field, you might want to find places like this, landslides or cliffs, because some of the birds, like the hummingbirds or flycatchers, like to utilize places like this in order to build their nests. The reason is, the overhanging part provides a perfect protection from wind or rain, and also, It's high up from the ground, so it makes it harder for their predators to find their nests. And just like the overhanging parts of the cliffs, fallen tree trunks like that might also be a good site for nesting. And this is a flycatcher's nest. Even if you have found a nest, you have to make sure of whether the nest is being used or not. Sometimes when you find a nest, it could be an active one, but it could also be an old one. In order to find out the answer, you can simply pick off a leaf and then put it inside. If it's an active one, the bird will remove the leaf from the nest. But if you check it the next day and the leaf is still there, it means probably it's an old one. What is more, the parents care so much about their nest that they clear whatever it is in the nest apart from the clean nesting materials and their babies, even when it is their baby's defecation. With all this being said, finding a good nest is no easy task. To some degree, it really depends on how lucky you are. Sometimes, even though after walking all day long, you might end up coming back to the station empty-handed. Yet, although 50% of nest searching is luck, 150% of it actually comes from persistence and determination. It is about how determined you are to keep on walking, holding your head up and paying attention to everything around you. The last thing you want to do in the field is to lose this motivation and give up. And even if you don't find anything by the end of the day, remember that tomorrow is a brand new day and you just have to keep on going. Field work is never a one-day thing. And to me, especially after this half a year of doing fieldwork with 3 internships, it is definitely the biggest adventure of my life. I'm so refreshed despite I got myself all sweaty, salty, or muddy every day. But what is refreshing is my mind, seeing how my lifestyle could be so different from previously. This huge comparison just makes me rethink about my connection with nature, which I have disconnected from it for almost my whole life. There are just so many things we could do to get ourselves closer to nature, and thus be content from the inside. As simple as it is to go for a walk away from the city, pay more attention to what's happening outside the concrete walls by seeing, hearing, smelling, and feeling it on your own. And even just to think about how you can strike a balance between the time spent in the built environment and nature. The more you do so, the more you will know how to appreciate nature and thus protect it. It is true that our nature is now in trouble, but each and every step we take for connecting with nature counts. as we are responsible for it as the stewards of nature.
Oh, now that we're down here, safe, let's get out of here, find some more nests.
Marina, let's go to 1-4.
Okay, there.
No.
Wow.
Is that good? On?
Ouch, ouch.
These are the evil bamboos. Ouch.
When you're out in the field, you want to find places like these. You might want to find places like this. The overhanging part provides. The overhanging part provides a protection from.
See? Told you. Not easy.